Recently, a very unfortunate GoFundMe page has been circulating over Twitter. A man had recently died, and his cousin was looking to help raise some money to provide his family with some financial help throughout dealing with this tragedy. It was the details of the case that would begin appearing in the news that would later go on to shock the viewers of this page. On Friday night of April the 23rd, 2021, just a couple of weeks before making this video actually, a 55-year-old man named Nguyen went missing from Fort Wayne, Indiana. After the family started searching and began rallying the community together, searching overnight, he still wasn't found. A statewide silver alert was declared. The family held out hope that he would soon be found and the whole thing would just be some sort of misunderstanding. Shane was an owner of a local small business, a pillar of the local Vietnamese community. He had a wife and two sons, one 20 years old and one 17 years old. He had helped many of his friends in his small community get their lives started in Fort Wayne, where he was a pretty well-known guy. He had recently started a food truck business, one that would give him more free hours to spend at home. On Monday the 25th at about 5 a.m., police spotted Shane's van pulling out from an alley and driving out onto the street. Running the plates and seeing the silver alert pop up, they tried to flag the van down and stop it. The van then took off, both raising suspicion and evading the police. They began chasing the car down, with the van stopping at one point. The driver hopped out and ran, and the passenger took over driving and sped off once again. Due to the intense speed of the chase and the dangers it was posing to the locals, the cops slowed down, with the van getting away. However, it wouldn't get very far. It crashed through a nearby picket fence between a gas station parking lot and a local home. By the time the police caught up to it, the driver was gone. They performed a search of the car, where they then found Shane's body, spread out throughout several different garbage bags. The cause of death was later found to be blunt force trauma to the head. Police searched the rest of the car, in which they found the receipt from a Lowe's in Goshen, a town about an hour away from Fort Wayne. Included on this receipt were items including tarps, a hacksaw blades, a plastic tub, and 2 shovels. Inside was also a large knife purchased from a Walmart also in Goshen. Police ventured to the stores themselves to see the security camera footage, which enabled them to find the identities of the persons who had purchased the items on the receipt. They found someone in the store who knew one of the men who purchased the goods, who they identified as Jacob. The police research led them then to find 20-year-old Cody Clements, 21-year-old Matthew J. Kramer II, and 20-year-old Jacob D. Carreon-Hamilton as their possible and only suspects. Police quickly tracked down the third man, we'll call him Jacob for the sake of brevity, and took him in for an interview that day. He professed that he had absolutely nothing to do with the murder. He was merely instructed by the second man, Matthew Kramer, to buy some items and meet him at a storage locker. A storage locker in which the victim was being kept. According to him, he wasn't filled in on what was happening until they arrived at the unit, saying that he returned to the van upon seeing the body. Looking into Matthew Kramer, police decided to check his social media, where they found that Kramer had posted a picture of himself, for some reason, posing in front of his storage facility in Fort Wayne. Surveillance video from the location showed Jacob driving the van with Matthew inside at around 11 p.m. on Saturday night, the night Shane went missing. Officers were quickly able to obtain a search warrant for the storage locker, and inside they found a bloody tarp along with a large knife and items that once belonged to Shane. Police were able to track down and capture Matthew Kramer later that evening as well. Cody Clements soon, likely after hearing the news, turned himself into the police. The story began to come together. Keep in mind that it has only been 2 weeks since the crime, so these details may be subject to change. On the night of his disappearance, Shane Nguyen was asked for a ride by Matthew Kramer, stating that he was trying to get from Elkhart to Fort Wayne. He had already decided by this point that he was going to kill him. Accepting the ride, he had Shane drive him to a storage locker he rented. While Shane had his back to him in the van, Matthew quickly put him into a chokehold until he was rendered unconscious. He then pulled him out of the van. Then, after he was on the ground, Matthew proceeded to, quote, smash his head against the pavement until he was dead. Matthew Kramer then put the body into his storage locker and took Shane's money with him. He, Jacob, and the other man, Cody Clements, went to different stores in Goshen to buy their items, with the goal to clean up the scene, using Shane's money to pay. Kramer and Jacob, who had previously said that he knew nothing of what was going on, then discussed how they would deal with the body. They dropped Clements off somewhere along the way. Jacob and Matthew then continued on and unloaded their tools at the storage locker late Saturday night. They closed the locker door behind them, and Matthew proceeded to use the tools to get the body into several pieces, while Jacob held him down. They were later in the middle of moving the van, containing both the body and the evidence, when the police chase began. Their initial hearing took place just 11 days after Shane went missing. Matthew Kramer II now faces a charge of murder and a charge of resisting law enforcement. He's stuck with a public defender, and his next hearing will be held on May the 19th. Jacob Carreon-Hamilton is charged with assisting a criminal and resisting law enforcement, and is being held for $15,000 bail. If he is able to post bail, his trial date will be decided at a hearing held around June 28th. The third man, Cody Clements, hasn't yet formally been charged with any crime, as he was only present during the purchase of the items. He hasn't been completely ruled out yet, but the details are still being ironed out. At a time when attacks towards Asian Americans are on the rise, the GoFundMe page really blew up on Twitter, jumping to over $200,000 in donations within just a few weeks. This probably has you wondering, was the attack race-related? Well, the short answer is, we don't really know yet. But given the recent trend, it's really easy to see why most people would think so. Sergeant Jeremy Webb of the Fort Wayne Police Department says that it is not race-related, and that they have evidence pointing in a different direction.
What was motivating these guys? Why did this person go to this extent to end a life?
Although the victim is Asian, investigators do not consider this to be a racially motivated crime.
We do have evidence to point us in a different direction than race. And so that's why we can say it's not race-related at this point.
At this point, it is unlikely that they will disclose what their investigation is telling them about the motive behind the case. But given that Shane's money was only used to buy the tools used to clean up the scene itself, it's safe to say that robbery likely isn't a motive. That is, unless they were aiming to sell the van. All speculation at this point. Needless to say, the family is devastated by this case. Friends have done their best to get the word out about what a good man Shane was. Many people are surprised at the lack of media attention the case received. Twitter continues to argue about the case as the family spends their time preparing a funeral and trying to begin to piece their lives back together.
When we came here, we don't have anybody to look up to. We don't speak the language. He had a big impact in the community because we don't have a big community here, but people like him, there's not many around.
He stepped up when a lot of people wouldn't and didn't. And he's changed people's lives for the positive, for a better place. He wanted them to experience the American dream that he was having.
That's a huge for the community. He's not here physically, but he sure will continue to be with me forever.
So thank you again for watching, everyone. I'm not going to ask if you like this video, but giving it a like does help with the algorithm. If you want to subscribe, I do post periodical case update videos. If you want to support the channel, I do have a Patreon account now. I'll post the link to that in the description and at the end of this video. And if you'd like to donate to Shane's GoFundMe, I will post a link to that GoFundMe page up at the top of the description below. So, thanks again everyone, and I'll see you next time. A special shout out to my top tier patrons: Cami Kruger, Brittany Marchbanks, Heather Ivanyuk, Angelin, Toy King, and Teresa Ferguson. I can't thank all of you guys enough. You've really helped this channel out. I plan to use my first payout to buy a better mic, so thank you for contributing. I always appreciate it.